Tuesday, May 2nd, 1944. Dear Kitty, on Saturday evening I asked Peter whether he thought I ought to tell Daddy a bit about us. When we discussed it a little, he came to the conclusion that I should. I was glad, for it shows that he's an honest boy. As soon as I got downstairs, I went off with Daddy to get some water, and while we were on the stairs I said, "Daddy, I expect you've gathered that when we're together Peter and I don't sit miles apart. Do you think it's wrong?" Daddy didn't reply immediately, then said, "No, I don't think it's wrong, but you must be careful, and you're in such a confined space here." When we went upstairs, he said something else on the same lines. On Sunday morning, he called me to him and said, "And I have thought more about what you said." I felt scared already. It's not really very right here in this house. I thought that you were just pals. Is Peter in love? Oh, of course not, I replied. You know that I understand both of you, but you must be the one to hold back. Don't go upstairs so often. Don't encourage him more than you can help. It is the man who is always the active one in these things. The woman can hold him back. It is quite different under normal circumstances. When you are free, you see other boys and girls, you can get away sometimes, play games and do all kinds of other things. But here, if you're together a lot and you want to get away, you can't. You see each other every hour of the day, in fact, all the time. Be careful and don't take it too seriously. I don't. Daddy, but Peter is a decent boy, really a nice boy. Yes, but he is not a strong character. He can be easily influenced for good, but also for bad. I hope for his sake that his good side will remain uppermost, because, by nature, that is how he is. We talked on for a bit and agreed that Daddy should talk to him too. On Sunday morning in the attic he asked, "And have you talked to your father, Anne?" "Yes," I replied. "I'll tell you about it. Daddy doesn't think it's bad, but he says that here, where we're so close together all the time, clashes may easily arise. But we agreed, didn't we, never to quarrel, and I'm determined to stick to it." "So will I, Peter, but Daddy didn't think that it was like this. He just thought we were pals. Do you think that we still can be?" "I can. What about you?" "Me too. I told Daddy that I trusted you." "I do trust you, Peter, just as much as I trust Daddy, and I believe you to be worthy of it." "You are, aren't you, Peter?" "I hope so." He was very shy and rather red in the face. "I believe in you, Peter," I went on. "I believe that you have good qualities and that you'll get on in the world." After that, we talked about other things. Later I said, "If we come out of here, I know quite well that you won't bother about me anymore." He flared right up. "That's not true, and, oh no, I won't let you think that of me." Then I was called away. Daddy has talked to him. He told me about it today. "Your father thought that the friendship might develop into love sooner or later," he said. But I replied that we would keep a check on ourselves. Daddy doesn't want me to go upstairs so much in the evenings now, but I don't want that. Not only because I like being with Peter. I have told him that I trust him. I do trust him and I want to show him that I do, which can't happen if I stay downstairs through lack of trust. No, I'm going. In the meantime, the Dussel drama has righted itself again. At supper on Saturday evening, he apologized in beautiful Dutch. Van Don was nice about it straight away. It must have taken Dussel a whole day to learn that little lesson off by heart. Sunday, his birthday, passed peacefully. We gave him a bottle of good 1919 wine, from the Van Dons, who could give their presents now after all. A bottle of piccalilli and a packet of razor blades, a jar of lemon jam from Crowler, a book, Little Martin, from Miep, and a plant from Ellie. He treated each one of us to an egg. Yours, and Wednesday, May 3rd, 1944. Dear Kitty, first, just the news of the week. We're having a holiday from politics. There is nothing, absolutely nothing to announce. I too am gradually beginning to believe that the invasion will come. After all, they can't let the Russians clear up everything. For that matter, they're not doing anything either at the moment. Mr. Kufuus comes to the office every morning again now. He's got a new spring for Peter's divan, so Peter will have to do some upholstering, about which, quite understandably, he doesn't feel a bit happy. Have I told you that Bosch has disappeared? Simply vanished. We haven't seen a sign of her since Thursday of last week. I expect she's already in the cat's heaven, while some animal lover is enjoying a succulent meal from her. Perhaps some little girl will be given a fur cap out of her skin. Peter is very sad about it. Since Saturday, we've changed over and have lunch at 11:30 in the mornings, so we have to last out with 1 cupful of porridge. This saves us a meal. Vegetables are still very difficult to obtain. We had rotten boiled lettuce this afternoon. Ordinary lettuce, spinach, and boiled lettuce. There's nothing else. With these we eat rotten potatoes, so it's a delicious combination. As you can easily imagine, we often ask ourselves here despairingly, what is the use of the war? Why can't people live peacefully together? Why all this destruction? The question is very understandable, but no one has found a satisfactory answer to it so far. Yes, why do they make still more gigantic planes, still heavier bombs, and, at the same time, prefabricated houses for reconstruction? Why should millions be spent daily on the war, and yet there's not a penny available for medical services, artists, or for poor people? Why do some people have to starve, while there are surpluses rotting in other parts of the world? Oh, why are people so crazy? I don't believe that the big men, the politicians, and the capitalists alone are guilty of the war. Oh no, the little man is just as guilty. Otherwise, the peoples of the world would have risen in revolt long ago. There's in people simply an urge to destroy, an urge to kill, to murder and rage, and until all mankind, without exception, undergoes a great change, wars will be waged. Everything that has been built up, cultivated, and grown will be destroyed and disfigured, after which mankind will have to begin all over again. I have often been downcast, but never in despair. I regard our hiding as a dangerous adventure, romantic and interesting at the same time. In my diary, I treat all the privations as amusing. I have made up my mind now to lead a different life from other girls and, later on, different from ordinary housewives. My start has been so very full of interest, and that is the sole reason why I have to laugh at the humorous side of the most dangerous moments. I am young and I possess many varied qualities. I am young and strong and am living a great adventure. I am still in the midst of it and can't grumble the whole day long. I have been given a lot, a happy nature, a great deal of cheerfulness and strength. Every day I feel that I am developing inwardly, that the liberation is drawing nearer, and how beautiful nature is, how good the people are about me, how interesting this adventure is. Why, then, should I be in despair? Yours, and Friday, May 5th, 1944. Dear Kitty, Daddy is not pleased with me. He thought that after our talk on Sunday, I automatically wouldn't go upstairs every evening. He doesn't want any necking, a word I can't bear. It was bad enough talking about it. Why must he make it so unpleasant now? I shall talk to him today. Margot has given me some good advice, so listen. This is roughly what I want to say. I believe, Daddy, that you expect a declaration from me, so I will give it you. You are disappointed in me, as you had expected more reserve from me, and I suppose you want me to be just as a 14-year-old should be. But that's where you're mistaken. Since we've been here, from July 1942 until a few weeks ago, I can assure you that I haven't had any easy time. If you only knew how I cried in the evenings, how unhappy I was, how lonely I felt, then you would understand that I want to go upstairs. I have now reached the stage that I can live entirely on my own, without Mummy's support or anyone else's for that matter. But it hasn't just happened in a night. It's been a bitter, hard struggle, and I've shed many a tear before I became as independent as I am now. You can laugh at me and not believe me, but that can't harm me. I know that I'm a separate individual and I don't feel in the least bit responsible to any of you. I am only telling you this because I thought that otherwise you might think that I was underhand, but I don't have to give an account of my deeds to anyone but myself. When I was in difficulties, you all closed your eyes and stopped up your ears and didn't help me. On the contrary, I received nothing but warnings not to be so boisterous. I was only boisterous so as not to be miserable all the time. I was reckless so as not to hear that persistent voice within me continually. I played a comedy for a year and a half, day in, day out. I never grumbled, never lost my cue, nothing like that, and now the battle is over. I have won. I am independent both in mind and body. I don't need a mother anymore, for all this conflict has made me strong. And now that I'm on top of it, now that I know that I've fought the battle, now I want to be able to go on in my own way too, the way that I think is right. You can't and mustn't regard me as 14, for all these troubles have made me older. I shall not be sorry for what I have done, but shall act as I think I can. You can't coax me into not going upstairs. Either you forbid it, or you trust me through thick and thin, but then leave me in peace as well. Yours and Saturday, May 6, 1944. Dear Kitty, I put a letter, in which I wrote what I explained to you yesterday, Daddy's pocket before supper yesterday. After reading it, he was, according to Margot, very upset for the rest of the evening. I was upstairs doing the dishes. Poor Pim, I might have known what the effect of such an epistle would be. He is so sensitive. I immediately told Peter not to ask or say anything more. Pim hasn't said any more about it to me. Is that yet in store, I wonder? Here everything is going on more or less normally again. What they tell us about the prices and the people outside is almost unbelievable. Half a pound of tea costs 350 florins, a pound of coffee 80 florins, butter 35 florins per pound, and egg 1.45 florin. People pay 14 florins for an ounce of Bulgarian tobacco. Everyone deals in the black market. Every errand boy has something to offer. Our baker's boy got hold of some sewing silk. 0.9 florin for a thin little skein. The milkman manages to get clandestine ration cards. The undertaker delivers the cheese. Burglaries, murders, and theft go on daily. The police and night watchmen join in just as strenuously as the professionals. Everyone wants something in their empty stomachs, and because wage increases are forbidden, the people simply have to swindle. The police are continually on the go, tracing girls of 15, 16, 17 and older who are reported missing every day. Yours and Sunday morning, May 7th, 1944. Dear Kitty, Daddy and I had a long talk yesterday afternoon. I cried terribly and he joined in. Do you know what he said to me, Kitty? I have received many letters in my life, but this is certainly the most unpleasant. You, and who have received such love from your parents, you, who have parents who are always ready to help you, who have always defended you whatever it might be, can you talk of feeling no responsibility towards us? You feel wronged and deserted. No, and you have done us a great injustice. Perhaps you didn't mean it like that, but it is what you wrote. No, and we haven't deserved such a reproach as this. Oh, I have failed miserably. This is certainly the worst thing I've ever done in my life. I was only trying to show off with my crying and my tears, just trying to appear big, so that he would respect me. Certainly, I have had a lot of unhappiness, but to accuse the good Pim, who has done and still does do everything for me, no, that was too low for words. It's right that for once I've been taken down from my inaccessible pedestal, that my pride has been shaken a bit, for I was becoming much too taken up with myself again. What Miss and does is by no means always right. Anyone who can cause such unhappiness to someone else, someone he professes to love, and on purpose, too, is low, very low. And the way Daddy has forgiven me makes me feel more than ever ashamed of myself. He is going to throw the letter in the fire, and is so sweet to me now, just as if he had done something wrong. No, and you still have a tremendous lot to learn. Begin by doing that first, instead of looking down on others and accusing them. I have had a lot of sorrow, but who hasn't at my age? I have played the clown a lot too, but I was hardly conscious of it. I felt lonely, but hardly ever in despair. I ought to be deeply ashamed of myself, and indeed I am. What is done cannot be undone, but one can prevent it happening again. I want to start from the beginning again, and it can't be difficult. Now that I have Peter. With him to support me, I can and will. I'm not alone anymore. He loves me. I love him. I have my books, my storybook, and my diary. I'm not so frightfully ugly, not utterly stupid, have a cheerful temperament, and want to have a good character. Yes, and you felt deeply that your tedder was too hard and that it was untrue. To think that you were even proud of it. I will take Daddy as my example, and I will improve. Yours, and Monday, May 8th, 1944. Dear Kitty, have I ever really told you anything about our family? I don't think I have, so I will begin now. My father's parents were very rich. His father had worked himself right up, and his mother came from a prominent family, who were also rich. So in his youth, Daddy had a real little rich boy's upbringing, parties every week, balls, festivities, beautiful girls, dinners, a large home, etc., etc. After Grandpa's death, all the money was lost during the World War and the inflation that followed. Daddy was therefore extremely well brought up, and he laughed very much yesterday when, for the first time in his 55 years, he scraped out the frying pan at table. Mummy's parents were rich too, and we often listen open-mouthed to stories of engagement parties of 250 people, private balls, and dinners. One certainly could not call us rich now. But all my hopes are pinned on after the war. I can assure you I'm not at all keen on a narrow, cramped existence like Mummy and Margot. I'd adore going to Paris for a year and London for a year to learn the languages and study the history of art. Compare that with Margot, who wants to be a midwife in Palestine. I always long to see beautiful dresses and interesting people. I want to see something of the world and do all kinds of exciting things. I've already told you this before. And a little money as well won't do any harm. Meep told us this morning about a party she went to celebrate an engagement. Both the future bride and bridegroom came from rich families, and everything was very grand. Meep made our mouths water telling us about the food. They had vegetable soup with minced meatballs in it, cheese, rolls hors d'oeuvre with eggs and roast beef, fancy cakes, wine and cigarettes, as much as you wanted of everything, black market. Meep had 10 drinks canned. That be the woman who calls herself a teetotaler? If Meep had all those, I wonder however many her spouse managed to knock back? Naturally, everyone at the party was a bit tipsy. There were 2 policemen from the fighting squad, who took photos of the engaged couple. It seems as if we are never far from Meep's thoughts, because she took down the addresses of these men at once, in case anything should happen at some time or other, and good Dutchmen might come in useful. She made our mouths water. We, who get nothing but 2 spoonfuls of porridge for our breakfast, and whose tummies were so empty that they were positively rattling, we, who get nothing but half-cooked spinach, to preserve the vitamins, and rotten potatoes day after day, we, who get nothing but lettuce, cooked or raw, spinach and yet again spinach in our hollow stomachs. Perhaps we may yet grow to be as strong as Popeye, although I don't see much sign of it at present. If Meep had taken us to the party, we shouldn't have left any rolls for the other guests. I can tell you, we positively drew the words from Meep's lips. We gathered round her, as if we'd never heard about delicious food or smart people in our lives before. And these are the granddaughters of a millionaire. The world is a queer place. Yours, and Tuesday, May 9th, 1944. Dear Kitty, I've finished my story of Ellen the Fairy. I have copied it out on nice notepaper. It certainly looks very attractive, but is it really enough for Daddy's birthday? I don't know. Margot and Mummy have both written poems for him. Mr. Crowler came upstairs this afternoon with the news that Mrs. B., who used to act as demonstrator for the business, wants to eat her box lunch in the office here at 2 o'clock every afternoon. Think of it. No one can come upstairs anymore, the potatoes cannot be delivered. Ellie can't have any lunch, we can't go to the WC, we mustn't move, etc., etc. We thought up the wildest and most very suggestions to wheedle her away. Van Dawn thought that a good laxative in her coffee would be sufficient. "No," replied Cofuus, "I beg of you not, then we'd never get her off the box." Resounding laughter. "Off the box?" asked Mrs. Van Dawn. "What does that mean?" An explanation followed. "Can I always use it?" she then asked stupidly. "Imagine it." Ellie giggled. "If one asked for the box in Bijenkorf, as superscript 1, they wouldn't even understand what you mean." "Oh, Kit, it's such wonderful weather. If only I could go outdoors." Yours and Wednesday, May 10th, 1944. Dear Kitty, we were sitting in the attic doing some French yesterday afternoon when I suddenly heard water pattering down behind me. I asked Peter what it could be, but he didn't even reply, simply tore up to the loft, where the source of the disaster was, and pushed Muschi, who, because of the wet earth box, had sat down beside it, harshly back to the right place. A great din and disturbance followed, and Muschi, who had finished by that time, dashed downstairs. Muschi, seeking the convenience of something similar to his box, had chosen some wood shavings. The pool had trickled down from the loft into the attic immediately and, unfortunately, landed just beside and in the barrel of potatoes. The ceiling was dripping, and as the attic floor is not free from holes either, several yellow drips came through the ceiling into the dining room between a pile of stockings and some books, which were lying on the table. I was doubled up with laughter. It really was a scream. There was Muschi crouching under a chair, Peter with water, bleaching powder and floor cloth, and Van Dawn trying to soothe everyone. The calamity was soon over, but it's a well-known fact that cats' puddles positively stink. The potatoes proved this only too clearly, and also the wood, shavings, that Daddy collected in a bucket to be burned. Poor Muschi. How you to know that Pete were is unobtainable. Yours and P.S. Our beloved Queen spoke to us yesterday and this evening. She is taking a holiday in order to be strong for her return to Holland. She used words like, soon, when I am back, speedy liberation, heroism, and heavy burdens. A speech by Gerbrandy followed. A clergyman concluded with a prayer to God to take care of the Jews, the people in concentration camps, in prisons, and in Germany. Yours and Thursday, May 11th, 1944. Dear Kitty, I'm frightfully busy at the moment, and although it sounds mad, I haven't time to get through my pile of work. Shall I tell you briefly what I have got to do? Well, then, by tomorrow one must finish reading the first part of Galileo Galilei, as it has to be returned to the library. I only started it yesterday, but I shall manage it. Next week I have got to read Palestine at the Crossroads and the second part of Galilei. Next, I finished reading the first part of the biography of the Emperor Charles V yesterday, and it's essential that I work out all the diagrams and family trees that I have collected from it. After that I have 3 pages of foreign words gathered from various books, which have all got to be recited, written down, and learned. Number 4 is that my film stars are all mixed up together and are simply gasping to be tidied up. However, as such a clearance would take several days, and since Professor and, as she's already said, is choked with work, the chaos will have to remain a chaos. Next, Theseus, Oedipus, Peleus, Orpheus, Jason, and Hercules are awaiting their turn to be arranged, as their different deeds lie crisscross in my mind like fancy threads in a dress. It's also high time Myron and Phidias had some treatment, if they wish to remain at all coherent. Likewise, it's the same with the 7 and 9 years' war. I'm mixing everything up together at this rate. Yes, but what can one do with such a memory? Think how forgetful I shall be when I'm 80. Oh, something else, the Bible. How long is it still going to take before I meet the bathing Susanna? And what do they mean by the guilt of Sodom and Gomorrah? Oh, there is still such a terrible lot to find out and to learn. And in the meantime, I've left Lissalette of the Falls completely in the lurch. Kitty, can you see that I'm just about bursting? Now, about something else. You've known for a long time that my greatest wish is to become a journalist someday and later on a famous writer. Whether these leanings towards greatness or insanity will ever materialize remains to be seen, but I certainly have the subjects in my mind. In any case, I want to publish a book entitled Het Achterwees after the war. Whether I shall succeed or not, I cannot say, but my diary will be a great help. I have other ideas as well, besides Het Achterwees, but I will write more fully about them some other time when they have taken a clearer form in my mind. Yours and Saturday, May 13th, 1944. Dearest Kitty, it was Daddy's birthday yesterday. Mummy and Daddy have been married 19 years. The charwoman wasn't below and the sun shone as it has never shone before in 1944. Our horse chestnut is in full bloom, thickly covered with leaves and much more beautiful than last year. Daddy received a biography of the life of Linnaeus from Cuvius, a book on nature from Crowler, Amsterdam by the water from Dussel, a gigantic box from Van Donn, beautifully done up and almost professionally decorated, containing 3 eggs, a bottle of beer, a bottle of yogurt, and a green tie. It made our pot of syrup seem rather small. My roses smelled lovely compared with Miep's and Ellie's carnations, which had no smell, but were very pretty too. He was certainly spoiled. 50 fancy pastries have arrived, heavenly. Daddy himself treated us to spiced gingerbread, beer for the gentlemen, and yogurt for the ladies. Enjoyment all around. Yours and Tuesday, May 16th, 1944. Dearest Kitty, just for a change, as we haven't talked about them for so long, I want to tell you a little discussion that went on between Mr. and Mrs. Van Donn yesterday. Mrs. Van Donn, the Germans are sure to have made the Atlantic Wall very strong indeed. They will certainly do all in their power to hold back the English. It's amazing how strong the Germans are. Mr. Van Donn, oh yes, incredibly, Mrs. Van Donn, yes. Mr. Van Donn, the Germans are so strong they're sure to win the war in the end, in spite of everything. Mrs. Van Donn, it's quite possible. I'm not convinced of the opposite yet. Mr. Van Donn, I won't bother to reply anymore. Mrs. Van Donn, still you always do answer me. You can't resist capping me every time. Mr. Van Donn, of course not, but my replies are the bare minimum. Mrs. Van Donn, but still you do reply, and you always have to be in the right. Your prophecies don't always come true by a long shot. Mr. Van Donn, they have up till now. Mrs. Van Donn, that's not true. The invasion was to have come last year, and the Finns were to have been out of the war by now. Italy was finished in the winter, but the Russians would already have Lemberg. Oh, no, I don't think much of your prophecies. Mr. Van Donn, standing up, it's about time you shut your mouth. One day I'll show you that I'm right. Sooner or later you'll get enough of it. I can't bear any more of your grousing. You're so infuriating, but you'll stew in your own juice one day. End of part 1. I really couldn't help laughing. Mummy too, while Peter sat biting his lip. Oh, those stupid grown-ups. They do better to start learning themselves before they have so much to say to the younger generation. Yours and Friday, May 19th, 1944. Dear Kitty, I felt rotten yesterday, really out of sorts, unusual for and with tummy ache and every other imaginable misery. I'm much better again today, feel very hungry, but I'd better not touch the kidney beans we're having today. All goes well with Peter and me. The poor boy seems to need a little love even more than I do. He blushes every evening when he gets his goodnight kiss, and simply begs for another. I wonder if I'm a good substitute for Bosch? I don't mind. He is so happy now that he knows that someone loves him. After my laborious conquest, I've got the situation a bit more in hand now, but I don't think my love has cooled off. He's a darling, but I soon closed up my inner self from him. If he wants to force the lock again, he'll have to work a good deal harder than before. Yours and Saturday, May 20th, 1944. Dear Kitty, last evening, I came downstairs from the attic and as I entered the room saw, at once the lovely vase of carnations lying on the floor, Mummy down on hands and knees mopping up and Margot fishing up some papers from the floor. What's happened here? I asked, full of misgivings and, not even waiting for their answer, tried to sum up the damage from a distance. My whole portfolio of family trees, writing books, textbooks, everything was soaked. I nearly wept and was so worked up that I can hardly remember what I said, but Margot said that I let fly something about incalculable loss, frightful, terrible, can never be repaired, and still more. Daddy burst out laughing, Mummy and Margot joined in, but I could have cried over all the toil that was wasted, and the diagrams I'd so carefully worked out. On closer inspection, the incalculable loss didn't turn out to be as bad as I'd thought. I carefully sorted out all the papers that were stuck together and separated them in the attic. After that, I hung them all up on the clotheslines to dry. It was a funny sight, and I couldn't help laughing myself. Maria de Medici beside Charles V, William of Orange, and Marie Antoinette. It's a racial outrage, was Mr. Van Don's joke on the subject. After I'd entrusted my papers into Peter's care, I went downstairs again. Which books are spoiled? I asked Margot, who was checking up on them. Algebra, she said. I hurried to her side, but unfortunately, not even the algebra book was spoiled. I wish it had fallen right in the vase. I've never loathed any other book so much as that one. There are the names of at least 20 girls in the front, all previous owners. It is old, yellow, full of scribbles and improvements. If I'm ever in a really very wicked mood, I'll tear the blasted thing to pieces. Yours and Monday, May 22nd, 1944. Dear Kitty, on May 20th, Daddy lost 5 bottles of yogurt on a bet with Mrs. Van Don. The invasion still hasn't come yet. It's no exaggeration to say that all Amsterdam, all Holland, yes, the whole west coast of Europe, right down to Spain, talks about the invasion day and night, debates about it and makes bets on it and hopes. The suspense is rising to a climax. By no means everyone we had regarded as good Dutch have stuck to their faith in the English. By no means everyone thinks the English bluff a masterly piece of strategy. Oh no, the people want to see deeds at last. Great, heroic deeds. Nobody sees beyond his own nose. No one thinks that the English are fighting for their own land and their own people. Everyone thinks that it's their duty to save Holland as quickly and as well as they can. What obligations have the English towards us? How have the Dutch earned the generous help that they seem so explicitly to expect? Oh no, the Dutch will have made a big mistake. The English, in spite of all their bluff, are certainly no more to blame than all the other countries, great and small, which are not under occupation. The English really won't offer us their apologies, for even if we do reproach them for being asleep during the year. When Germany was rearming, we cannot deny that all the other countries, especially those bordering Germany, also slept. We shan't get anywhere by following an ostrich policy. England and the whole world have seen that only too well now, and that is why, one by one, England, no less than the rest, will have to make heavy sacrifices. No country is going to sacrifice its men for nothing, and certainly not in the interests of another. England is not going to do that either. The invasion, with liberation and freedom, will come sometime, but England and America will appoint the day, not all the occupied countries put together. To our great horror and regret, we hear that the attitude of a great many people towards us Jews has changed. We hear that there is anti-Semitism now in circles that never thought of it before. This news has affected us all very, very deeply. The cause of this hatred of the Jews is understandable, even human sometimes, but not good. The Christians blame the Jews for giving secrets away to the Germans, for betraying their helpers, and for the fact that, through the Jews, a great many Christians have gone the way of so many others before them and suffered terrible punishments and a dreadful fate. This is all true, but one must always look at these things from both sides. Would Christians behave differently in our place? The Germans have a means of making people talk. Can a person, entirely at their mercy, whether Jew or Christian, always remain silent? Everyone knows that is practically impossible. Why, then, should people demand the impossible of the Jews? It's being murmured in underground circles that the German Jews who emigrated to Holland and who are now in Poland may not be allowed to return here. They once had the right of asylum in Holland, but when Hitler has gone, they will have to go back to Germany again. When one hears this, one naturally wonders why we are carrying on with this long and difficult war. We always hear that we're all fighting together for freedom, truth, and right. Is discord going to show itself while we are still fighting? Is the Jew, once again, worth less than another? Oh, it is sad, very sad, that once more, for the umpteenth time, the old truth is confirmed. What one Christian does is his own responsibility. What one Jew does is thrown back at all Jews. Quite honestly, I can't understand that the Dutch, who are such a rude, honest, upright people, should judge us like this. We, the most oppressed, the unhappiest, perhaps the most pitiful of all peoples of the whole world. I hope one thing only, and that is that this hatred of the Jews will be a passing thing, that the Dutch will show what they are after all, and that they will never totter and lose their sense of right. For anti-Semitism is unjust. And if this terrible threat should actually come true, then the pitiful little collection of Jews that remain will have to leave Holland. We, too, shall have to move on again with our little bundles and leave this beautiful country, which offered us such a warm welcome and which now turns its back on us. I love Holland. I who, having no native country, had hoped that it might become my fatherland, and I still hope it will. Yours, and Thursday, May 25th, 1944. Dear Kitty, there's something fresh every day. This morning our vegetable man was picked up for having 2 Jews in his house. It's a great blow to us. Not only that those poor Jews are balancing on the edge of an abyss, but it's terrible for the man himself. The world has turned topsy-turvy. Respectable people are being sent off to concentration camps, prisons, and lonely cells, and the dregs that remain govern young and old, rich and poor. One person walks into the trap through the black market, a second through helping the Jews or other people who've had to go underground. Anyone who isn't a member of the NSB doesn't know what may happen to him from one day to another. This man is a great loss to us too. The girls can't and aren't allowed to haul along our share of potatoes, so the only thing to do is to eat less. I will tell you how we shall do that. It's certainly not going to make things any pleasanter. Mummy says we shall cut out breakfast altogether, have porridge and bread for lunch, and for supper fried potatoes and possibly once or twice per week vegetables or lettuce, nothing more. We're going to be hungry, but anything is better than being discovered. Yours, and Friday, May 26th, 1944. Dear Kitty, at last I can sit quietly at my table in front of a crackedy window and write you everything. I feel so miserable. I haven't felt like this for months. Even after the burglary, I didn't feel so utterly broken. On the one hand, the vegetable man, the Jewish question, which is being discussed minutely over the whole house, the invasion delay, the bad food, the strain, the miserable atmosphere, my disappointment in Peter, and on the other hand, Ellie's engagement, Whitsun reception, flowers, Crowler's birthday, fancy cakes, and stories about cabarets, films, and concerts. That difference, that huge difference, it's always there. One day we laugh and see the funny side of the situation, but the next we are afraid, fear, suspense, and despair staring from our faces. Meep and Crowler carry the heaviest burden of the aide in hiding, Meep in all she does and Crowler through the enormous responsibility, which is sometimes so much for him that he can hardly talk from pent-up nerves and strain. Kofuis and Ellie look after us well too, but they can forget us at times, even if it's only for a few hours or a day, or even 2 days. They have their own worries, Kofuis over his health, Ellie over her engagement, which is not altogether rosy, but they also have their little outings, visits to friends, and the whole life of ordinary people. For them, the suspense is sometimes lifted, even if it is only for a short time, but for us it never lifts for a moment. We've been here for 2 years now. How long have we still to put up with this almost unbearable, ever-increasing pressure? The sewer is blocked, so we mustn't run water, or rather only a trickle. When we go to the WC, we have to take a lavatory brush with us, and we keep dirty water in a large cologne pot. We can manage for today, but what do we do if the plumber can't do the job alone? The municipal scavenging service doesn't come until Tuesday. Meep sent us a currant cake, made up in the shape of a doll with the words, "Happy Whitsun" on the note attached to it. It's almost as if she's ridiculing us. Our present frame of mind and our uneasiness could hardly be called happy. The affair of the vegetable man has made us more nervous. You hear shoo, shoo from all sides again, and we're being quieter over everything. The police forced the door there, so they could do it to us too. If one day we too should... No, I mustn't write it, but I can't put the question out of my mind today. On the contrary, all the fear I've already been through seems to face me again in all its frightfulness. This evening at 8 o'clock I had to go to the downstairs lavatory all alone. There was no one down there, as everyone was listening to the radio. I wanted to be brave, but it was difficult. I always feel much safer here upstairs than alone downstairs in that large, silent house. Alone with the mysterious, muffled noises from upstairs and the tooting of motor horns in the street. I have to hurry for I start to quiver if I begin thinking about the situation. Again and again, I ask myself, would it not have been better for us all if we had not gone into hiding, and if we were dead now and not going through all this misery, especially as we shouldn't be running our protectors into danger anymore? But we all recoil from these thoughts too, for we still love life. We haven't yet forgotten the voice of nature. We still hope about everything. I hope something will happen soon now. Shooting, if need be, nothing can crush us more than this restlessness. Let the end come, even if it is hard, then at least we shall know whether we are finally going to win through or go under. Yours and Wednesday, May 31st, 1944. Dear Kitty, it was so frightfully hot on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday that I simply couldn't hold a fountain pen in my hand. That's why it was impossible to write to you. The drains went fud again on Friday, were mended again on Saturday. Mr. Kofuis came to see us in the afternoon and told us masses about Corey and her being in the same hockey club as Jopi. On Sunday, Ellie came to make sure no one had broken in and stayed for breakfast. On Whit Monday, Mr. Van Santen acted as the hideout watchman, and, finally, on Tuesday the windows could be opened again at last. There's seldom been such a beautiful, warm, one can even say hot, Whitsun. The heat here in the Secret Annex is terrible. I will briefly describe these warm days by giving you a sample of the sort of complaints that arise. Saturday. Lovely. What perfect weather. We all said in the morning. If only it wasn't quite so warm. In the afternoon when the windows had to be closed. Sunday. It's positively unbearable, this heat. The butter's melting, there's not a cool spot anywhere in the house. The bread's getting so dry, the milk's going sour, windows can't be opened, and we, wretched outcasts, sit here suffocating while other people enjoy their Whitsun holiday. Monday. My feet hurt me. I haven't got any thin clothes. I can't wash the dishes in this heat. All this from Mrs. Van Don. It was extremely unpleasant. I still can't put up with heat and am glad that there's a stiff breeze today, and yet the sun still shines. Yours, and